So death and taxes, conversation topics for the upcoming holidays. Take, the elephant out of the room and have that conversation. When this person passes away, what is the plan?
Hey, I want to welcome everybody to the Real World Retirement Podcast. This is really exciting. This is going to be a really fun journey. Every single episode, what I'm going to be doing is bringing on a financial expert who has very unique real world stories to bring client situations right there to the public, right here to the podcast, and help you understand the different solutions that we're using to help families in retirement. So my name is Alexander Pushman. I am your host. And in this very first episode, I am fired up. We have one of the best financial advisors that I personally know, absolute professional, Katie Gushen. And she is out of here of the Clarkston office in Michigan. And, Katie's got a really, really unique and really cool story. And so kind of before we jump into the case studies and we start nerding out on all this financial stuff, Katie, do me a favor, tell me a little bit about, what got you into this business, why you love doing it, and kind of just your story about becoming a financial advisor.
Yeah, so I started off over 10 years ago now, and I worked for a military wealth management and trust company. At the time, I was a military spouse.
Okay.
And spent 10 years doing that, so helping soldiers with transitioning out of retirement, saving for retirement, and then really, getting into helping, the next generation, plan for the future. For me personally, the main thing that really kind of made me realize that I was on the right path and doing something that I knew I wanted to do. I sat down with my grandparents. So my grandfather was a former Marine, so World War II. He actually bought my grandmother's engagement ring when he was stationed at Pearl Harbor.
How about that?
So pretty cute. And he sat down with me and said, would you mind taking a look at our finances and making sure that our affairs are in order? And I had been waiting forever. I didn't want to push. He's a very private person.
Right.
So I said, yeah, let's go over everything. And as we started going through, his information, one, I realized that we had been waited entirely too long.
Okay.
At that time, I want to say they were 96 and 93 years old. So what were we waiting for? Right. But, I said, do you have a copy of your estate plan? Can I review that information? And he goes, well, I have it. And he pulls it out of the shoebox that's in the closet, and it references the typewriter it's written on. And I'm like, okay, we have a problem. I said, do you think the attorney could send me, like an updated version? He goes, oh, I don't think that's going to be possible. He's been dead for quite some time. So I said, okay, this needs to be updated. But as I was working with them, we sat down and we started talking about what comes next.
Yeah.
And for them, it was, end of life.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy conversation to have.
Yeah.
It's something you and I have this conversation on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And we almost forget the magnitude of what we're talking about with people. Because I'm sitting there with my grandparents and I go into financial advisor mode and I'm like, okay, so, upon your passing, we'll do this. And then upon your passing, this. And I look up from the table and everybody has tears in their eyes. And I'm like, okay, let's dial it back. But these are important conversations to have. Yeah. These are conversations I encourage, all my clients to have, because you want to be prepared. You don't want to, get caught off guard for something like that. So that for me was like, okay, one of my light bulb moments. I had a lot of light bulb moments, but that was when I truly realized what we do is making a difference. And I want to make sure, I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I want to make sure that I've prepared them and I've prepared myself so that they're not stuck kind of picking up the pieces following that.
Yeah, which is easier said than done. And it's like, and I know, my story is very similar pertaining to like my grandpa ran out of money on one side of the family. My grandmother runs out of, money on the other side of the family. And so like my whole exposure to the financial industry wasn't like this is a great thing, and I want to get into Wall Street. It's like, no, hey, there's good and bad in every field, and there's so many families that struggle to have those hard conversations. Right. Where, again, to your point, part of our job, as financial advisors, like I always say, part of our job is, of course, everybody talks about, hey, the stocks and the growth and the taxes and everything else. Part of it is being an accountability partner,
right,
to have people complete the things they say they want to complete, and us hold them accountable to those timelines.
Absolutely.
So I know, the topic of today, just so everyone knows, the topic of today, I'll kind of throw it out there, which I love, is death and taxes. So I know you have some really, really, let's just say unique client scenarios and case studies that we want to share with the podcast here. Where would you like to start? Because I know you got some good nuggets here, and I'm going to kind of leave it up to you to where you'd like to kind of start and go through that story and kind of let's walk through how you helped them out. You tell me where you'd like to start.
So death and taxes, conversation topics for the upcoming holidays. So no, just kidding. The main reason I wanted to talk about, death and taxes. So again, kind of going back to my grandparents.
Yeah.
Having those uncomfortable conversations. One thing we say a lot, you need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I had a situation a couple weeks ago, I was sitting down with a client and she realized, how beneficial it had been planning this out. It gave her peace of mind. And she said, I wish I could get my mom to come in here and talk to you, because she needs to make sure all of her affairs are in order. And she said she just doesn't like talking about her demise. Nobody does, right? And my comment to her was, you got to use the bus scenario. And she's like, bus scenario. So for me, the bus scenario is, I don't ever want to sit in that room and, if someone's hand is visibly shaking, or they tell me, they have Parkinson's, or they have whatever it is, I don't want to address that in that meeting.
Yeah.
I want to take, some of that stress away. I don't want to identify that. So I always use the same scenario. What if you walk out of here and get hit by a bus? That can happen to anybody, right?
Right, absolutely.
So same thing with husband and wife. If we're talking about one going and then, if the other one were to pass away, no, both of you walk out of here and get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
And she kind of laughed. You can say when grandma wrecks her bike at, her Harley at Bike Week, I don't care what it is, keep it light,
Right,
keep it fun.
Right.
Take, the elephant out of the room and have that conversation. When this person passes away, what is the plan? And stress test that financial plan.
Okay.
Because what you don't want is to be, again, caught off guard and realize that you don't have enough in terms of assets. So you mentioned case studies. I could tell you several, but the one that comes to mind for me, when I was working with military members, Colonel and Mrs. Colonel, they come into the office, we're doing their financial plan, and he makes the joke because, I'm always stress testing. So I said, okay, you get hit by the bus. And he says to me, he goes, Miss Katie, he goes, you are the princess of darkness. And I
First
said,
time you heard that?
Yeah, right. I was like, this is a new term of endearment. What do you mean? And he goes, every time I come in here, you're killing me off. And I laughed because I am always killing him off. But
and you're referring to the income plan. Hey, what if you die here? What if you die here? Right.
And I said to him, I go, the thing is, when the higher income earner, not husband, not wife, the higher income earner passes away, that's what puts the most stress on your plan.
Right.
And so I said, I want to test this out, because if you get hit by the bus tomorrow, I want to make sure Mrs. Colonel is okay. Mm-hmm. And so he understood that. And when we did that, we realized that there were some shortfalls within their plan.
Okay.
So, he wanted to get rid of his life insurance. I don't need to pay for this anymore. I don't need life insurance. And I said, well, Mr. Colonel, if we get rid of that life insurance, it's not successful for your wife. This plan is not successful. So let's keep it in play for another 5 years, and we'll revisit that conversation. He had a survivor benefit on his pension. He said, well, I want to keep 100% to myself because it gives me a bigger benefit. I said, but in the event that you get hit by the bus,
right,
she's not going to have enough in terms of assets to live off of.
Right.
So we ended up keeping that in play. I kid you not even 6 months later, I get a phone call from the wife.
Oh, no.
He's just been diagnosed with a terminal illness. And he passed away within 18 months of that meeting.
Oh, goodness.
Now, as heartbroken as I was,
Right.
because we become very invested and get to know these people quite well. We become very close with them.
It's a business relationship with a very, very personal piece to it.
They are sharing information with us. They're not sharing with anybody else.
Amen.
As heartbroken as I was over all of that, I had peace of mind knowing she was going to be okay.
Right.
Because we had stress tested this every way we possibly could.
Right.
And every time it was successful, only because we had implemented those changes.
Amen. And so let me ask you a couple questions, because couple things that I'm hearing is number one, and I'm a broken record with this stuff, is plan for the worst.
Yep.
Right. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. But then also when you say stress testing, what do you mean by that? What does that mean to you? So
anything that could possibly go wrong. For me, it's, an early death scenario, a long-term care event, that people often overlook that one because if you're not able to work, the average long-term care event, so needing long-term care, whether it's, a nursing home or a private nurse coming to the house, the average event is 1 to 3 years. And most everyone is going to have one. Yeah. So we don't know how long that's going to be.
Right.
And if your plan is going to survive that financially. So I stress test. I am the princess of darkness. It is true.
Well, hey, but to your
my
point,
intentions are good.
Your intentions are good. And so, kind of just thinking about this one and just to kind of dive a little bit deeper on it. So, okay, we're going to extend the life insurance 5 more years. Yep. And make sure we get to kind of like X to where now we are what we would call self-insured, right? And they weren't there yet.
Right.
And that's a big one that I'm always talking about with families, because that one can go 2 ways, right? Mm-hmm. What I always look at is the first way it can go is, to your point, hey, somebody just doesn't want to pay their premium.
Right. None of us do.
None of us do, amen. But, hey, I don't want to pay this $300. I'm making good money, I'm okay. But they're not at the liquid investment point to where now, hey, you're self-insured and you don't need those type of insurances, right? And so out of curiosity, how are you figuring that out? How do you kind of draw a line saying, hey, it's 5 years from now? How can you project into the future, being obviously a high level expert in financial planning, but what tools do you use? What's kind of a good recommendation you use for families to understand where that is, and how are you projecting?
So we're doing comprehensive financial planning.
Okay.
So we are going into the weeds. I ask lots of personal questions. I want to know your expenses. I'm going to inflate those. Every bill that you're going to have to pay, and then where your expenses are going to be in retirement. I'm factoring everything in, and I got to a point in their plan where I saw the assets that they were drawing out and what they were going to be drawing out 5 years from now, and if his income went away, where she would be, and the numbers didn't match up.
Amen.
So at the end of that line, there's a red negative number, and I wasn't okay with that.
And you're really talking about, and again, obviously, this financial planning is very, very, it can be scary for people, right? Yep. It can be overwhelming. Yep. It's confusing. But really what you're talking about is like a distribution plan or an income plan, right? Where you're looking out 20, 30 years. Hey, you're factoring all these different things of, hey, what if this happens? What if that happens? Right. Are you not okay? Which then gives you the ability to kind of set these barriers for families. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And one thing, people always bring up net worth. Net worth is, the total of everything you own. So if you have multiple homes or whatever it may be, cars, you don't want to necessarily have to sell those assets to maintain your income plan. So a lot of times people think, well, I have assets. Well, if husband passes away or the higher income earner passes away and you have to meet this number, but you don't want to sell the vacation house.
Right.
What are you going to do? That the only way to liquidate that asset is to sell it. And you may not be willing to do that. So you need to make sure you have those liquid assets available.
So what goes into, just really quick on the income plan concept, what goes into an income plan? What are kind of the major variables or data pieces you need to really have a good, sound income plan?
the one thing I always emphasize, the accuracy of your expenses.
Okay.
So
How much you're spending a month?
exactly.
Okay.
And a lot of times people will add up all their bills. That is not an accurate number.
Right.
And I always joke and say your wife is lying about how much she spends on Amazon because I buy everything there. I'm not running out to the stores.
Right.
But adding in all those miscellaneous. For me, they added a new coffee shop near my house. When I went through my monthly debit card bill, I was like, oh my gosh, I am spending so much money there. Every time I get in the car, hey, you want a coffee? Kids want a sandwich? I'm stopping there every time I go up and down the road. I don't stop there as much now because I'm aware of what I'm spending.
Right.
But, just taking that accountability, factoring all that in, if that number is accurate, then I feel confident in delivering that report to you and saying, hey, you're going to be okay.
Right.
If you lowball me on a number, you're
good.
only hurting yourself.
Absolutely.
And I'm probably going to figure it out anyway. So just be honest up front. But no, it's not going to be accurate. You're only hurting yourself.
And so it starts, the most important thing, and I completely agree, is, hey, what are we spending a month? Not only on your bills, not only on these ancillary entertainment, travel, like whatever falls into that bucket for that person or that family.
We always say there's no right or wrong answer.
Right.
We just need the accurate answer.
Right. And I know, we've talked about this before, but like, hey, they come in at $3,000 a month. You might be like, I'm going to jump this up to 3,500 or $4,000 because now you are accounting for taxes and they didn't even consider it.
Right. Exactly.
So that can be a wormhole. What other elements do you make sure you're baking into an income plan?
So the one thing I like too, let's just say you come in and say, okay, my expenses are $3,000 a month. Okay. Then at the end of the year, based on what you have coming in terms of income and what you're telling me your expenses are, you should have this much left over.
In the bank,
Alex,
money market.
Yes. Alex, at the end of the year, you have a $50,000 check that you're going to give me to reinvest.
Right.
And you're either going to say yes or no. And if you're saying no, those expenses are not accurate.
Right. So you're sitting here tallying up the numbers and say, oh, great. So this is how much we're going to invest at the end of the year, and holding it accountable to the reality of that number.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. I know you have a wealth of knowledge, and one of the things that I really appreciate about your approach to financial planning is your experience with veterans and that military background, which obviously is not only close to just your heart with, your grandparents and I know you spent a lot of time in that working with a lot of, high level military folks. And, what would be some things, let's say, that we have a listener or a viewer who's a military person, are there any things that you think would be important for these folks to know that maybe is unique to the military or a veteran or whatnot? Some things that maybe would be a nice nugget for them to say, hey, didn't know about that.
Yes. So another case study, had a situation where military spouse, they came in to me and said, hey, look, we're looking to retire. And husband was super excited because he had just bought, a brand new motorcycle. It was his retirement gift to himself. And he goes out and he doesn't come back.
Oh, baby.
So he had just, they had just bought their forever home, and, wife is devastated, understandably. And we started, looking at, okay, we got to make the best of this, right? So we wanted to help her as much as possible, and came across something called the HEART Act.
Okay, H-A-R-T?
H-E-A-R-T.
Okay, so just like the heart. Okay,
yep.
Okay.
Heroes Earning Assistance Relief Tax Act of 2008.
Okay.
So
I've never heard of this for the record.
Yeah. So military members get something called SGLI. It's the Service Member Group Life Insurance.
Okay.
Normally, a life insurance policy, so if you were to get hit by a bus.
Right, knock on wood.
You get hit by a bus, your life insurance, the only thing you're going to be able to do with that, or your spouse would be able to do with that, is put it into like a non-qualified account.
Right.
So they inherit it tax-free.
Right.
And then it goes into a non-qualified account.
Or the bank, which unfortunately people just don't invest it, whatever.
Yep.
But it's non-qualified, not a retirement dollar, not an IRA dollar, not a Roth dollar.
Right.
Non-qualified after tax, capital gains talk.
Yes.
Okay.
So you put $1 in that non-qualified account, or you put $1 in that checking account. All the growth, the interest, you're going to pay taxes on.
Right. Okay.
So the HEART Act allows you to take that life insurance settlement and put it into a Roth IRA,
Really?
all of it.
Wow. I have not heard of that.
Yes.
That
so
is
$400,000 is what SGLI awards you.
okay. Is that
That's
life
their
insurance
max.
policy?
Yep, that's the service member group life insurance. $400,000 that you can put into a Roth account.
Okay.
And then the beauty of the Roth IRA, for those that may not know, Roths grow tax-free and they are inherited tax-free. So now because of this, every dollar that money, that 400,000 grows, it will all be tax-free to her
kidding.
and her children.
That is massive.
Yeah.
Because historically, outside of what I'm hearing right now, there's really only two ways into a Roth, right? A, if you're doing contributions, which is coming from earned income, right? And you're limited,
Right.
Right? If you're over 50, and let's just say we're kind of talking to a retirement population, if you're over 50, you're going to be limited, obviously when we're recording this podcast, to $8,000 a year.
Right.
However, the only other way outside of earning money, being limited, and contributing out of that paycheck or out of your bank account would be a Roth conversion, which I know is a hot topic button, where you're taking an IRA dollar, or 401k, 403b, paying the tax, and moving it into a Roth.
Right.
Right. And so now your point is, and again, just to make sure everybody out there is aware, a Roth IRA, you put the money in, it's already been taxed.
Right.
So it grows tax free. And then if you decide to use it, it's tax free on the distribution. And then to your point, if you don't use it and it goes to the family, the beneficiaries, tax free.
Right.
So the big question I would ask, people out there is, do you prefer to have a tax free dollar or a dollar that can be taxed infinitely,
Right.
aka non-qualified?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Wow, that is massive.
Yeah, huge savings. And when you talk about doing Roth conversions, let's just say, that 400,000, if you were converting it, you would have to pay taxes on that entire 400,000.
Right.
That's getting added to your income. You're going to the highest tax bracket real quick with adding 400,000 to your income. So she was able to move all of it into a Roth IRA and will forever get that tax free.
That is massive.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really incredible. So like the first thing I would say, if you're a listener right now or you're watching, and you are somebody or somebody who's gone through this, I had not known about that rule. That is a big deal. Please feel free to reach out to us through our social channels, our social media. You can actually reach out to us, just to do a little quick plug. Foguth Financial Group. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on the web. FoguthFinancial.com is our website, and you can go to Foguth Financial Group. Type us into old Dr. Google. We'll pop up for you there. But that's a big one. And again, I'm even like, my mind's kind of running with clients that I work with, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, did I maybe miss an opportunity? So I'm gonna be calling my old right hand man associate over there and start doing some digging, because hey, that's a big one.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing nugget, and thank you for sharing that. And what an impact for that family,
Right.
going through a terrible scenario, right? You lose your husband right when he retires, basically.
Right.
Works his whole life, gets there, but it's those little things, to your point, and kind of both of your examples and case studies we've discussed today. It was a female, right?
Yep.
And the male was the higher earner,
Right.
leaving their wife in kind of a tough jam, and little things that we can do to make sure they're okay.
Right. I have one more for you.
Yeah. All right. Let's hear it.
This time we'll do the opposite. So a gentleman, again, death and taxes. They were in the process of doing Roth conversions. So realizing that they were in this high tax situation and not wanting his kids to inherit his tax situation.
Okay.
So he said, I'm going to start doing Roth conversions, or we're going to start doing Roth conversions so that our kids do not have to pay so much in taxes.
Right.
Great idea. His wife passes away unexpectedly in November. Now, as you and I know, you have until December of that tax year. He calls me and says it probably doesn't make sense to do these Roth conversions now. The one thing he was not thinking about, he is in a married filing jointly tax bracket currently in November.
Right.
The following year, he will be in a single tax bracket as a widow. Now, do I think it's right? No. I hate seeing that, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So I said, with all due respect, I'm very sorry for your loss.
Right.
it makes even more sense to do these Roth conversions now.
Right.
And I actually think we should do more and accelerate it, because this is the last year we're going to get this tax break.
Yeah.
So we did a larger Roth contribution or conversion because he was not going to be in that tax bracket.
No kidding. Yeah. And like, I know we always talk about it. It's like those single filers, they get killed on taxes.
Yeah.
And
the thing to keep in mind too, you're inheriting your spouse's IRA.
Right.
So you're adding to the pot.
Mm-hmm. And then taxes are getting worse.
And taxes are, getting worse.
Your Social Security gets smaller.
Yeah.
Right.
You probably just went from, if you're in the 22% bracket, you could have just gone to, or the 12%, you could have gone to 22.
And 10%, that's a real number.
That's a huge number.
Absolutely it is. So that's a great example. So really quick, just to kind of dive into it, because, obviously, our topic today is death and taxes.
Yep.
And,
Kept it light.
Yeah. What was it? The Princess of Darkness?
Princess of Darkness.
The Princess of Darkness. So when we talk about like the death and tax piece, it's the two things, and I think kind of the running joke is death and taxes are the two things that are guaranteed in life, right? Without going down a rabbit hole of like, we could talk about 50 types of life insurance. Mm-hmm. We could talk about 50 different types of tax planning strategies on IRA dollars, non-qualified dollars, employee stock option plans, blah, 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 blah. Those are three phenomenal case studies. Is there any other, kind of what I would say best practices that you use to educate clients when it comes to, maybe some softball? Roth conversions is a great one. I know that's a really hot topic, and maybe we add a little bit of flavor to that. But is there any other, kind of tax strategies that you think are softballs that would be good for somebody to know, whether they're in the military or not?
Yeah. Really just being aware of your current tax bracket and doing the planning, just like I said, planning for death. We know it's going to occur.
Right.
You don't want to be, caught with your pants down. You want to make sure the same with taxes. You want to make sure if you can do that pre-planning ahead of time, do that.
Yeah.
You're going to be in a higher tax bracket upon the passing of the spouse. So doing that there.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because the harsh reality is there's never a good time to do it.
No.
Right. And like the game of life, right, we know never turns off, and there's never a perfect time. Hey, so-and-so's birthday. Hey, we're going on vacation. I'm sick. Hey, it's the holidays. Like, there's never a good time to have these tough conversations. And to your point, I think that's a phenomenal point of draw a line in the sand. And what I would also encourage, if you have a financial planner and you're listening or watching, like I said earlier, your financial planner should be your accountability partner.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not my job to be a yes man, and it's not our job to just say yes.
Right. Our
job is to help educate people, make sure they know the rules to play by, because if you don't know the rules to the game, how are you going to play it? Right? But then also help educate people on all those different options to make an informed choice. And then again, to my kind of first point is then hold them accountable to a timeline. Right. It's never our job to say, hey, you're doing this with your life savings. That's not our role. But I think that's a phenomenal point of just saying, hey, listen, there's never a good time to do it. And the harsh reality is we never know when that box is getting checked, and there's no better day than today.
And a good financial advisor is going to push you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
For me, I laugh because when I, walk to the lobby with my clients, we're usually laughing, maybe exchanging hugs, whatever it is. You have no idea the conversations that are taking place behind the door. Those are the difficult conversations. We're telling people if they can afford to retire or not. Someone that's working till 70 may not be ideal. But I got to be honest, and I want to make sure that the plan is successful. So those are hard conversations to have. The death conversation is a hard one to have. But a good financial advisor is going to be someone that's willing to do that. And then exchange hugs at the door.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And I love that. This podcast. Real world retirement, right? And like our whole objective here is to bring these real stories and real solutions that have obviously really positively impacted so many different families, and bring them to you, the community, to not only get you thinking, but also, educate you, but also to be a resource to you if you have questions. Katie is amazing as an advisor. She's got a phenomenal moral compass and heart. But I think one of the most, again, unique things that I've found out, just working with you and kind of, just watching from a side is you're not afraid to dive into the hard conversations, but also that military piece, like that is it. If you don't know it, you don't know it.
Yeah.
And it's complicated.
Right.
And there's all sorts of crazy. Right. I've been doing this a long time, and I was not aware of either of those things. Right. And I'm sure there's a wealth of knowledge we're not even getting into right now. We don't want to bore people. But is there anything else kind of in closing that you think is important that you would just throw out there, whether it's about a case study or maybe something that we didn't hit a topic that you think's a good point?
If you are a military member, one thing I would say is share that with your financial advisor. Oftentimes I have people come in and they don't disclose that. And the funny thing is I've been around the military community for a long time. I can recognize them when they walk through the door, whether they're sporting a high and tight haircut or, right. A necklace, a ring, something they're wearing. I can usually pick it out.
Right.
Share that with your advisor because there are a lot of, tax breaks, property tax in Michigan. If you are a disabled veteran, if you are a 100% disabled, you do not have to pay property tax in the state of Michigan.
How about that?
So that, it varies by state to state,
right.
But it is something that, if you're sitting at a 90%, your advisor should be tracking because it doesn't take much to get you to that 100%. And then there's additional tax savings when you do that. So.
Bam. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hey, to my point, a wealth of knowledge over here in Katie. But I'm going to wrap up, and all I would say, if you've enjoyed this, please make sure you follow our channel. We're going to have YouTube content. We're going to continue to put these podcasts out. Again, my name is Alexander Pushman. I'm going to be your host. I'm going to be bringing on phenomenal advisors just like Katie here every single episode. And we're going to be bringing real world scenarios to you to hopefully help, again, educate you, give you ideas. And I can't stress this enough from the bottom of my heart. If you don't have a financial advisor, if you don't have a team behind you, dealing with your life savings, again, death and taxes, right? Investments, income, Medicare, veteran benefits, whatever it may look like, do not hesitate to reach out. How we operate as advisors, and again, why we're doing this is we believe education is the absolute core to helping families. It's not my job to just tell you what to do and do it blindly, right? And I know we agree on that.
Right.
It's more about educating you and, again, helping you make an informed choice. If you don't have that in your life, or you're looking for a second opinion, or you just have a simple question, we will never be bothered with a simple question. So again, I just encourage you, follow us on social media, Foguth Financial Group, Foguth. I get Foguth a lot, Foguth Financial Group. And again, thank you so much for tuning in here. This is our first episode. We got a lot of good stuff coming down the pike for you. Again, my name's Alexander Pushman. Katie, thank you so much for jumping this off and helping me launch this first episode. And again, we'll see you next time. Real World Retirement Podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.